Good morning, friends. It's your boy, Max Mogren, reporting live for you from beautiful Alpine, Wyoming. This is Wake Up Wyoming here on Wake Up News. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's your occasional show, a couple times a week at least, where we ask what would happen if the mainstream media told the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Of course, they don't, and that's why we're here critically analyzing it. As usual, we're looking at the Jackson Hole Daily today. This paper, 60 pages long, okay? 60 pages, about 70% advertising, 10% news, and 20% fluff. So let's get right into it. First, a big shout out. I want to say thanks to my friend Dangerous. Anybody tuning in, he just gave me this sweet new microphone. Check this thing out. Legit. So let me know if the levels sound good, if my audio sounds better. We can thank Dange for that. Great dude. Much appreciated. But if the levels are too hot or too low, let me know. I can adjust them accordingly. I had a cup of tea, but I lost it. So I'm just going to roll with it. Thank you all for tuning in. Again, let me know if those levels sound right. Okay, we're going to get right into it here. A great story. You know, I usually look at this paper. As far as newspapers go, it's a great paper. Again, Jackson Hole, the wealthiest county per capita in the United States. But the average person just squeaking by, okay? Can't stress that enough. It's a microcosm of a macro problem where all the wealth is magically floating up into the hands of the people that already have a lot of money, while the rest of us are stuck working shitty jobs just to squeak by, okay? Big problem out here. There's no shortage of jobs. Most of them don't pay very well, but the real problem is there's no housing, no affordable housing for the people. Some good news locally, though. St. John's Episcopal Church has committed to raising $250,000 toward Habitat for Humanity of the Greater Teton Area's effort to build Phase 3 of the Grove. That's an affordable housing development. The Jackson community is in such dire need of housing, St. John's spokesperson Haley Fleming said, that we thought this was the best use of our funds. The church's pledge amounts to the largest one Habitat has received so far for its largest project so far, according to Development Officer Courtney Allen. What's up, Courtney? St. John's pastor Jimmy Bartz wants the Episcopal Church's role as a faith partner to also include praying for the project and encouraging other faith communities to join St. John's in participating. Okay? Great. You know, if we could get more of these people that have money, resources on board to help out with the crisis around here, that'd be great. All you billionaires that got literally thousands of millions of dollars, why don't you pony up a couple million for affordable housing here in Jackson Hole? We're talking about one unit of 24, Bart said, so nobody is thinking that our work is going to have a huge impact on the challenge we have here in the valley when it comes to housing. But what our church really loved, he said, was that right now there is a family somewhere in this valley that lives with the stress and anxiety and struggle of not having secure housing. And after this project is done, because of the generosity of our parishioners, their financial gifts and their time, there will be a family that has a home. 44 affordable houses have already been constructed for phases 1 and 2 of the Grove. The final phase of 24 homes will be constructed 8 at a time with an estimated completion date of June 2021. When the 24 homes are complete, Habitat will have doubled its housing portfolio in the Jackson area. Okay, kudos to St. John's. Kudos to Habitat for Humanity for helping out with the crisis. Of course, it goes much deeper than that. It's a fundamentally flawed financial system. Again, any of you billionaires out there want to do some good, donate some money. Other local news, the eclipse. The eclipse is huge news. There's a local guy doing a cleanup. With incredible numbers of people come large volumes of waste, wrappers, cans, and bottles, excrement, and other forms of detritus. That inevitability caught the eye of longtime Jackson resident Hank Phibbs, who aims to make quick work of what's left in the aftermath of the Great American Eclipse on August 21st. Okay, the Saturday following the event, Phibbs is planning to spearhead a community-wide cleanup. Volunteers who enlist are asked to pull together teams of 4 and to have a pickup truck or SUV at their disposal to haul out garbage and recyclables, which will be sorted. Teton County will assist with the effort. This is actually important to note here. Teton County will assist in the effort by keeping the trash transfer station open on cleanup day and waiving disposal costs. So if you're thinking about taking that old refrigerator and dumping it off into the woods somewhere, just take it to the dump the Saturday after the eclipse. The Wyoming Department of Transportation is chipping in too. Phipps said by donating 400 gauge orange trash bags. To sign on to Phibbs' cleanup effort, contact him at phibbslaw@icloud.com or call 307-690-5004. So it's pretty cool. Jackson Hole Daily covering some awesome local news today. Kudos to the Jackson Hole Daily. Great opinion piece here today by Suzanne Fields. In the digital age, it's summertime and the selfie's easy. Okay, it's all about how the smartphone has radically changed our society. And I'm going to read most of this one because it's really good. It's very well written. And, Trey Amoyet says, what's going on here? Well, Trey, what I do is I go through the local paper here. I use it to elucidate all the flaws with the mainstream media, little media literacy, media analysis. If you're looking at the title, Sasquatch Kills the Hunter, that's a choice quote from a story we're going to get to a little later. Muharreen Adi-Khan, thank you so much for tuning in from Iran. I believe that's where you're at. And other people, show your comments. Let's show some love, show some support. Let's get some shares going. Let's get the word out. It's a beautiful Sunday, although a little smoky here in Alpine, Wyoming, from wildfires raging in Montana and Idaho. Summertime, and the living is easy, writes Susan Fields. George Gershwin's haunting melody and Dubois Hayward's tender lyrics once floated over the mood of summer, coaxing us to reverie. But that was when vacationers lay on the beach under a lazy sun, concentrating on important things, like grains of sand seeping through their toes and watching the currents of salty waves ebb and flow before rippling back to the vast deep. Beautiful writing from Susan Fields. We luxuriated in those summers past. We left the cacophony of the city and the urgencies of work and school. Such idealistic escapes, even if only partially accurate, are gone with the smartphone. I've watched people at play from the beach blanket on the Outer Banks of North Carolina. Instead of tossing a beach ball or jumping over waves, kids are mesmerized by digital toys, and grown-ups check their texts and email for the 10th time that day. And everybody takes selfies. Frankie, what up? Thanks for tuning in, Frankie. So it goes on and on, talking about selfie. In the digital world, detailed thoughts are reduced to acronyms on texts, LOL or SMH. It's not all bad, of course, and instant communication has its rewards. But some of the reliance on fast messaging keeps at bay slower, deeper insights and perceptions. Biographers complain that the reservoir of the written world is swiftly drying up on the shores of the electronic world, where Snapchats evaporate in 10 seconds and tweets disappear with the ease of a finger sliding up and down a tiny screen. The intellectual process for insight and observation may be changing too. We increasingly rely on the instant digital exchange to excite the senses, whether personal or political. Just 20 years ago, well, it's a long article, so I'm going to skip ahead a little. It was a short step from there to reality television, on, and then we get into the good part. Social critics point out how distraction has become more important than insight. That's true of the mainstream media. Columnists who follow readers' comments at the end of their work online are surprised by how readers are quickly distracted and begin arguing with and insulting each other. Neil Postman, the critic who wrote the 1985 book Amusing Ourselves to Death, that's a great book, by the way, I got a copy of that, foresaw danger when he wrote that facts push other facts into and then out of consciousness at speeds that neither permit nor require evaluation. He feared the future in Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, where people come to adore the technologies that undo their capacities to think. It's easy to attack Trump's persona as created in reality television without considering the responsibility of those who create them, those who select and sell distraction instead of serious news. With every revolutionary technology, there is hope that it will be harnessed to make the world a better place, but that requires the long view, and we're not there yet. It's summertime, and the selfie is easy, right? So there we go. Smartphones, digital technology, these things are amazing. Of course, it's also a tracking device. It's also potentially recording everything you say and do all the time. And it's also arguably emitting electromagnetic frequencies that can affect your health and mental well-being, mental, spiritual, social, physical health. Okay, the smartphone, the Wi-Fi, all that really powerful stuff. If you haven't read it yet, highly recommended book, The Body Electric, written in 1985 by Robert O. Becker, MD, Electromagnetism and the Foundation of Life. Most notably, get into chapter 15, Bang Bang, Maxwell's Silver Hammer. Powerful stuff. Smartphones, perhaps a Trojan horse. Important to note there, too, you know, they quote Aldous Huxley. That guy is an avowed globalist. Here's a fun factoid. Back in 1945-46, right when the UN was founded, right after World War II, his brother, Julian Huxley, Aldous Huxley's brother Julian, was the head of the newly founded United Nations Scientific Committee. Okay? And we had recently, if you'll recall, the United States had recently nuked Japan, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Horrible loss of life, death of civilians, innocent civilians in Japan, murdered with atomic bombs. But right after that event, while the dust was still settling, Julian Huxley, Aldous Huxley's brother, head of the UN Scientific Committee, proposed using nukes to melt the Arctic ice cap. Okay, all the way back in 1945-46, the head of the UN, avowed globalist Julian Huxley, proposing geoengineering to melt the ice cap with nukes. Fascinating stuff. Stranger than fiction. While we're on the topic of humans changing the climate, we'll look at our next opinion piece, also well written, but it's Climate Change Propaganda by Lenore Skenazy. Turn off the AC and get outside for the sake of our planet. It's August, which means most of us are feeling not unlike a Hershey bar in a pizza oven. What a relief to get home, crank up the AC, and damn the world to ever steamier summers. Okay? If you run your AC, you're killing the planet. That's what Lenore's saying there. 1/6 of the electricity we use in America, more than all of India, all the electricity used in India, goes to air conditioning. Generating that power adds to global warming, which, until the polar ice caps melt and we're just as cool as can be because we're living underwater, it's going to keep getting warmer. Until then, shouldn't you throw out your window unit provided there's no one standing directly underneath it? You bet your sweaty buns, says Lenore. But if you're like most people, you won't, unless you start thinking about all the ways air conditioning has made us a lonelier, chubbier, less fulfilled country. The loneliness factor is obvious. Just look at how we spend our season not in the sun. Before the advent of air conditioning, summer was one big block party with neighbors gossiping, hydrants spewing, and lots of shrieking, the good kind. Now, those same revelers stay inside Googling fun and wondering why they never have any. Then they snack. So which is better for everyone involved? Dipping another chip into dip or dipping a toe into the local pool, stream, or puddle of hydrant water? Which one is going to give you a bigger gut? Maybe one reason we're all blimping up, besides being told to eat carbs instead of fat, but that's for another column. That's true, by the way. Good point, Lenore. Is the AC that keeps us in the living room instead of heading out to toss a Frisbee. Okay? So, climate change propaganda disguised as a short, funny, witty opinion piece. Humans are changing the climate, but CO2, your electricity generation, is the least of our concerns. There are geoengineering programs. There is weather warfare. People have been manipulating the climate for over 100 years, and they've gotten pretty good at it. Also pretty good at not being transparent. These government organizations, the military-industrial complex, large corporations, etc. If you or I wanted to manipulate the weather, we could do it with zero federal oversight. All we need is a little Cessna and some silver iodide or aluminum to sprinkle out. Stranger than fiction, but that's the world we live in. So climate change propaganda. I got an article on the phone here from Truthdig. Okay, Truthdig, pretty good site. Not entirely on point. But what are they saying? Sorry, I got a lot of tabs. Truthdig, want to slow global warming? Don't have children. According to a new study from Lund University in Sweden, having fewer children is among the top ways to reduce climate change. NPR helpfully breaks down the Lund researchers' results. The study concludes that 4 high-impact ways to reduce CO2 gas emissions include having fewer children, living without a car, avoiding airplane travel, and eating a vegetarian diet. By the numbers, any of these lifestyle changes drastically reduces carbon emissions compared to more common practices like recycling, using energy-efficient light bulbs, and line drying clothes. Having one fewer child and an average in developed country of 58.6 metric tons CO2 equivalent emissions reductions per year. Okay, so there you go. Truth Dig telling us, if you want to save the planet, don't have kids. I personally don't think the problem is that there's too many people, maybe too many people who are misinformed, and a culture that is way too consumeristic, bent on its own destruction. Okay, we got a just classic distract and divide article here. Utah State panel keep Negro Bill Canyon name. A Utah State panel has voted to recommend retaining the name of Utah's Negro Bill Canyon after receiving conflicting opinions about whether it is offensive. The Utah Committee on Geographic Names said Friday that a lack of consensus from minority groups led to its 8-2 vote about a canyon that is home to a popular hiking spot in the eastern city of Moab, the gateway to stunning massive red rock formations. Okay, if you've never been to Moab, you got to check it out before you die. Absolutely incredible place. Very nice in the fall and spring, and midwinter as long as the weather's good, but it gets real hot and real crowded in the summer. They go on and on, but anyway, long story short, it's just a trail name. They called it Negro Bill Canyon because back in the 1870s, there was a black rancher, William Grandstaff, whose cattle grazed there. Jeanette Williams, president of the NAACP's Tri-State Conference area in Idaho, Utah, Nevada, said the word Negro may make some people feel uncomfortable, but that there's nothing wrong with it. Other groups still use Negro in their names, she said, citing the National Council of Negro Women. To sanitize it destroys the history and background of what it is, Williams said. It's a word we often use in history. It's in titles. It's no more uncomfortable saying the word Negro than it is saying African American or black. Okay? I think they should call it Black Bill Canyon. I think it's got a nicer ring to it. Trey Amoyet says, why would procreation be the top? Easier to control? Well, it seems like we're in the midst of a global depopulation agenda. Western male sperm counts are down 50% or so since the 70s. Everybody's getting autism, ADD, obesity. It's proven there's poison in the food, poison in the water, poison falling out of the sky. So, naturally, and with the technological advancements replacing workers, the people that own the planet don't need so many workers anymore. And they would rather there were fewer of us. Right? Sad but true. Okay, moving on. Similar thing. Healthcare, huge issue in the U.S. We had the Obamacare versus Trump care debacle. Trump care lost, but guess what? Trump could still decide to defund Obamacare, which has insurance companies doing what? Raising rates. The lone provider of health insurance through the Affordable Care Act in Wyoming is proposing to raise rates for those customers by almost 50%. Blue Cross Blue Shield spokeswoman Wendy Curran said the company is nervous about proposed changes to the health care law. She told Wyoming Public Radio that the insurer is particularly concerned about the threats to remove government subsidies for lower-income enrollees. The subsidies reduce the amount participants pay for deductibles, copays, and premiums. Some 28,000 people are covered through the Affordable Care Act in Wyoming. The federal Department of Health and Human Services would need to approve the wage cut. So, gotcha. Okay? First thing, we got to get everybody into the healthcare system. Everybody needs insurance. The government's going to run it. We're going to make it real cheap. But if you don't buy it, we're going to fine you. And now that everybody's stuck paying for it, they're going to jack up that price. Pretty straightforward. I got a great article here loaded up on the phone from Bloomberg. Americans die younger despite spending the most on healthcare. Karen J. Bowden, what's up? Thanks for tuning in. Myra Sosa, I love your energy too. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in, all of you today. I haven't seen any shares. I'm sure we got some. We got 81 viewers. Thank you all for tuning in. But Bloomberg coming out on August 2nd by Lori Meisler, Americans die younger despite spending the most on healthcare. Typically, the more a developed country spends on healthcare, the longer its people live. The U.S., which spends the most on healthcare, by far, about double per capita as a function of GDP, bucks that trend. Compared to the 35 countries in the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, which promotes policies to improve social and economic well-being, the U.S. life expectancy of 78.8 years ranks 27th out of 35. It has the 4th highest infant mortality rate in the OECD, the 6th highest maternal mortality rate, and the 9th highest likelihood of dying at a younger age from a host of ailments, including cardiovascular disease and cancer. Okay? I, for one, think the statistic 78.8 years life expectancy is dog shit. I think a lot of people die quite a bit younger than that. The average is lower. The U.S. is the most obese country in the OECD, leads in drug-related deaths, and ranks 33rd in prevalence of diabetes. Yet 88% of Americans say they are in good or very good health. Only 35% of Japanese, who have the highest life expectancy in the OECD, regard themselves as healthy or very healthy. On and on and on. So there's your healthcare spending, America. They gotcha. Interestingly, on the topic of healthcare, I got a great article from my friends at the Anti-Media. Gives us a little hope in the situation. Where is it? That's the Baltimore Cops. Trouble for Big Pharma, as nearly 50% of people report quitting pills for CBD, cannabis-derived oil, right? By Carrie Wedler, the provocative, intriguing, intelligent, brilliant, beautiful Carrie Wedler, August 4th, 2017. According to a recent survey conducted by cannabis market research firm The Brightfield Group and HelloMD, an online medical cannabis community, nearly half of CBD, that's cannabidiol, users give up prescription drugs and over-the-counter medications in favor of the non-psychoactive substance. The survey of over 2,400 respondents found 42% of CBD users, whether they use marijuana-derived CBD or hemp-derived CBD, have left their traditional medications behind altogether and now use cannabis instead. Okay? So, there you go. The solution is right in front of us. We got a nice article on e-bikes. Kind of cool. You know, the e-bike is a good thing. You can ride to work, get a little exercise, but not totally bust your ass. Okay, moving on. This is a good one. EPA chief to reconsider mine waste spill claims, coming out of Silverton, Colorado. The EPA will reconsider whether to pay farmers, business owners, and others in 3 states for economic losses caused by a mine waste spill that government crews, the government did this, accidentally triggered in 2015. EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt, who toured Gold King Mine with Colorado's lawmakers on the eve of the disaster's 2nd anniversary, said he told people to resubmit claims rejected under the Obama administration. It's not clear if the agency could pay on its own or how much of the potential payouts would need to be approved by Congress. The spill sent 3 million gallons of tainted wastewater from an old gold mine into rivers in Colorado, New Mexico, and Utah, causing an estimated $420 million in economic damages. The EPA has designated the area a Superfund site to pay for a broad cleanup. You probably remember seeing the images of this. This is horrible. Stretches of waterways turned an eerie orange-yellow, and the rivers were temporarily off limits for agriculture and water utilities, as well as fishing and boating, important contributors to the area's recreational economy. The EPA has said water quality has returned to the conditions before the spill. Native American reservations along the rivers were also affected. Okay, blah, blah, blah. In January, the agency said federal law prevented it from paying claims because of sovereign immunity, which prohibits most lawsuits against the government. So isn't that funny? If the government, blows up nukes all over the world, if the government, destroys things with war, the largest polluter in the world is the United States government, especially the U.S. military, the military-industrial complex. But due to sovereign immunity, they are immune from cleaning up their messes. The EPA should be held to the same standard as those we regulate, he said in a statement. The previous administration failed those who counted on them to protect the environment. It's uncertain whether the White House and Congress, both controlled by Republicans, are willing to pay for any of the economic losses, although the GOP has been most vocal in demanding the EPA make good. It's kind of funny because Trump was talking about defunding the EPA entirely in his campaign promises. It's not clear how much money will be at stake in a new round of claims. Claims for $1.2 billion in lost income, property damage, and personal injuries were initially filed with the EPA, but attorneys for some of the larger claimants later reduced the amounts they are seeking. So, if you are in the affected area, if you're down there along this river in Colorado, New Mexico, and Utah, get that money from Uncle Sam. Take a little back, stand up for your rights. Thank you all for tuning in. We're moving along into the national and international news. Okay. The Attorney General Sessions vows to rein in leaks. Okay, censorship. This is censorship, pure and simple. The media being threatened by the government to toe the line. Don't reveal any secrets. Right. So much for that. Attorney General Jeff Sessions pledged Friday to rein in government leaks that he said undermine American security, taking an aggressive public stand after being called weak on the matter by President Trump. Okay. The nation's top law enforcement official cited no current investigations in which disclosures of information had jeopardized the country, but he said the number of criminal leak probes has more than tripled in the early months of the Trump administration. Justice Department officials also said they were reviewing guidelines put in place to make it difficult for the government to subpoena journalists about their sources and would not rule out the possibility that a reporter could be prosecuted. There's your free speech, America. No one is entitled to surreptitiously fight in advance their battles in the media by revealing sensitive government information. So Attorney General Sessions sees the free media as fighting battles. No government can be effective when its leaders cannot discuss sensitive matters in confidence or talk freely in confidence with foreign leaders. Media advocacy organizations condemned the announcement, with Bruce Brown, the executive director of the Reporters Committee for Freedom of the Press, saying the decision to review existing guidelines was deeply troubling. What does Sessions say? This nation must end this culture of leaks. We will investigate and seek to bring criminals to justice. We will not allow rogue anonymous sources with security clearances to sell out our country, Sessions said in his remarks. Okay, so intimidating reporters, intimidating the media. I got a couple articles here about censorship while we're on the topic. Censorship alive and well in many forms in this country. I have to say, my own experience, I've been trolled before. I've been threatened before. And most recently, it seems like my Gmail account got hacked and was sending messages to my loved ones without, I didn't send them. So these are the things we deal with as activists. It's sad. If anybody out there watching has gotten an email from me or a message from me that seemed out of character, I didn't send it. Moving along. We got a couple stories here. Facebook it's reloading the page. Facebook to increase fact-checking in fight against fake news. Facebook is to send more potential hoax articles to third-party fact-checkers and show their findings below the original post. I wonder if they're going to use Snopes. Snopes is a joke. The world's largest online social network said Thursday as it tries to fight so-called fake news. Okay, this was written by Reuters out of Berlin. The company said in a statement on its website it will start using updated machine learning to detect possible hoaxes and send them to fact-checkers, potentially showing fact-checking results under the original article. Facebook has been criticized as being one of the main distribution points for so-called fake news, which many think influenced the 2016 U.S. presidential election. Okay. Hey, Facebook, make me a fact checker. I'll be a fact checker for you. I'll do a great job for you. I'll source everything. We can put my opinion under every article, and I promise it'll be 100% true to the best of my knowledge and ability, right? Amy Wilkins chiming in, big old pile of Snopes. Yeah, Snopes is a joke. I could ream Snopes a new one all day long, but they ain't even worth my time. Another great article coming out of the Black Agenda report recently about Google censoring the real legitimate left. Conclusive evidence exists. This is written by Bruce A. Dixon on Wednesday, August 2nd. It's getting real. Google censors the real left and us. Black Agenda report. Conclusive evidence exists that Google is suppressing public access to socialist and left-wing websites, most certainly including Black Agenda report. In fact, Black Agenda report is by all accounts the only black-owned, run, and oriented left website so targeted. Not Blavity, not The Root, which are not left. And in the case of The Root, not black-owned either. Nobody else black but us. How did that happen, and what does it mean? How can you dodge the block? Black Agenda report managing editor Bruce Dixon teeing off. Okay, this stuff is very real. It is, and it was only a matter of time. Convincing evidence has emerged that Google is actively suppressing public access to at least a dozen left-wing sites, including Black Agenda Report, by algorithms which game the keyword search results it presents to users. Back in September 2016, Reuters ran an article declaring that the First Draft Coalition, including Google, Facebook, Twitter, New York Times, Washington Post, BuzzFeed, Agency France Presse, and CNN, intended to launch an effort to combat fake news. Okay, it goes on and on. Great article about censorship online. Okay, I have to say, the independent media, we rely entirely on you. There are 60 users here right now, 57 viewers. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you don't share this video, I'm just a guy sitting in my office talking to myself. Okay? So we need your help. If you are scared to share things, why is that? You know, if you're scared that the government's going to come knocking on your door and arrest you for sharing the truth, I don't think that's going to happen. If you're scared that your loved ones are going to leave you, abandon you because you're too active online, I don't think your real friends are going to ditch you for that, right? Champagne to all my real friends, real pain to all my sham friends. It's a quote. It's a lyric. Blackwater conviction upended by court. Okay, briefly covering that. These Blackwater contractors in Iraq killed 17 civilians at an intersection. Convicted to go to jail. They shouldn't have even been there anyway. We shouldn't be fighting all these wars all over the world. It's ridiculous. And we certainly shouldn't be hiring private mercenary companies, whether it be in Iraq, Afghanistan, Yemen, Syria, or North Dakota. Right? Disturbing shit. Back to Jeff Sessions and marijuana. Okay? Jeff Sessions likes marijuana but loves censorship. It's in the headline today. The betting was that Law and Order Attorney General Jeff Sessions would come out against the legalized marijuana industry with guns blazing, but the task force Sessions assembled to give the best legal strategy to do so is giving him no ammunition, according to documents obtained by the Associated Press. The Task Force on Crime Reduction and Public Safety, a group of prosecutors and federal law enforcement officials, has come up with no new policy recommendations to advance the Attorney General's aggressive anti-marijuana views. The group's report largely reiterates the current Justice Department policy on marijuana. It encourages officials to keep studying whether to change or rescind the Obama administration's more hands-off approach to enforcement, a stance that has allowed the nation's experiment with the legal pot to flourish, and flourish indeed it has. The report was not slated to be released publicly, but portions were obtained by the AP. Okay, is that a leak, Attorney General Sessions? Was that report leaked? Is the AP breaking the law for reporting the news? Or are you a censor? Are you a fascist? I don't know. Sessions, who has assailed marijuana as comparable to heroin and blamed it for spikes in violence, has been promising to reconsider existing policy since he took office 6 months ago. His statements have sparked both support and worry across the political spectrum as a glowing number of states have worked to legalize the drug. If you've seen the footage of the governor of Nevada celebrating when marijuana was legalized there, it's pretty funny. We're going to get into it now. But it's important to note, Jeff Sessions, what kind of crack are you smoking, bro? Marijuana was used as a medicine. It was the most commonly prescribed medicine in the United States for over 100 years. And it's been used for over 10,000 years. In fact, the U.S. government, has a patent for marijuana as a very powerful cure for lots of things. U.S. patent 6,630,507 filed to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services on February 2nd, 2001. The patent lists the use of certain cannabinoids found within the cannabis sativa plant are useful in certain neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and HIV dementia. The patent called cannabis as antioxidants and neuroprotectants. Okay, so that's a great patent. Look that one up. Patent 6,630,507, owned by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Another fun little article on marijuana coming from True Disclosure. Published September 14th, 2016. Cannabis cures cancer, and the government has known since 1974. Cannabis is labeled by the U.S. government as a Schedule I narcotic, meaning little or no known medicinal value, even though the U.S. government holds patents that state otherwise. Marinol, which is approved by the FDA, is a synthetic form of THC. Blah, blah, blah. From 1850 to 1937, cannabis was used as the prime medicine for more than 100 separate illnesses and diseases in the U.S. pharmacopoeia. The U.S. government is well aware that cannabis has medicinal properties. How could they not? It's been used as medicine for at least the past 10,000 years. Even in America, cannabis was used as a medicine for over 100 years. It was in over 100 over-the-counter remedies for a wide range of reasons, everything from pain to nausea medication to sleeping tonics. Why did they make it illegal? It's a long story, so I won't go into it today. If you'd like to read about the greed and racism that caused the criminalization of the world's most useful plant, check out the linked article. Okay, it goes on. Talks about in 1972, Nixon wanted a larger budget for his war on drugs. He thought that if he proved cannabis caused lung cancer like cigarettes do, he would get the support he needed. He gave the Medical College of Virginia 2 years to do a study on the effects of cannabinoids on the body. In 1974, the study was completed. It turns out when ingested in highly concentrated forms, the cannabinoids in the oil will attack any mutated cells in your body while strengthening and rejuvenating the healthy cells. They accidentally found the perfect cure for cancer. Okay? So, marijuana. You know, if you smoke dope all day, you're not operating at your highest potential. It does, as a recreational drug, it's pretty fun once in a while. But if you wake and bake every day, you're not going to reach your highest potential. That said, it's a heck of a medicine for a lot of people. Moving along, we're getting into that Venezuelan currency World of Warcraft gold thing. Pretty wild. Caracas, Venezuela, defying criticism from Washington to the Vatican. Venezuela's ruling party on Friday installed a new super assembly that supporters promise will pacify the country and critics fear will be a tool for imposing dictatorship. The Constitutional Assembly's first order of business was selecting its head, former Foreign Policy Minister Delcy Rodriguez, a loyal follower of President Nicolas Maduro. The nomination was approved unanimously by the 545 delegates who marched to the neoclassical Legislative Palace, led by Socialist Party leader Diosdado Cabello and First Lady Celia Flores, and accompanied by hundreds of red-shirted government supporters carrying roses and portraits of late President Hugo Chavez. Of course, Hugo Chavez died of a very fast-acting cancer that was probably given to him for being so adamantly opposed and so outspoken against Western interests trying to take Venezuela's oil supply. Some shouted, "He's returned," as a jab to the opposition, which had ordered images of Chavez removed from an adjacent building when it won control of Congress in 2015. The assembly was scheduled to meet again Saturday, and Rodriguez pledged it would be taking action against Maduro's political opponents. "Don't think we're going to wait weeks, months, or years," she said. "Tomorrow we start to act." The violent fascists, those who wage economic war on the people, those who wage psychological war, justice is coming for you. Okay, that's Venezuela standing up for themselves. It is proven that the opposition in Venezuela is backed by the CIA, funded by oil companies like Exxon, who want to take all of Venezuela's oil. Okay, we don't need to invest in more oil development, but sadly, that's the trajectory the world is on. Goes on and on. This article very biased against Venezuela. An increasing number of foreign governments have sided with the opposition, refusing to recognize the Constitutional Assembly and further isolating Maduro's government. Okay, they have 545 people on this Congress. It's not like one guy calling the shots in Venezuela. The Vatican urged Maduro on Friday to suspend the new body, expressing deep worry for the radicalization and worsening of the turmoil in Venezuela. Blah, blah, blah. They're talking about boycotting Venezuela because it's become a dictatorship, and they're accusing Venezuela of tampering with the electronic voting machines. Okay, standard stuff in the mainstream here coming out. I've got an article here that's pretty funny, and it's about Venezuela, specifically the currency in Venezuela. Okay, what's the quote here? The violent fascists, those who wage economic war on the people, those who wage psychological war. Justice is coming. Well, economic war, psychological war, coming out of the Daily Caller on July 31st by Ian Miles Chong, a rather biased and offensive article. Venezuelan currency now worth less than World of Warcraft gold. The ongoing turmoil and the failure of socialist policies have caused the value of the Venezuelan currency, the bolivar, the tank, sinking to levels lower than that of a video game currency. Okay, so right there he's stating a very biased statement, the ongoing turmoil and failure of socialist policies. The U.S. Department of Treasury issued sanctions on Monday against the government of Nicolas Maduro following an election victory the U.S. ambassador to the United States, Nikki Haley, called a sham and another step towards dictatorship. Venezuelan user Caleb Prime was the first to note the plummeting value of the bolivar during the onset of riots and mass protests against the government. Okay. I think they got just as many people supporting the government. The Maduro government is not the one who caused their currency to collapse. That's outside interests. That's the boycott. That's economic sanctions. That's financial fraudsters. He noted on July 14th that the exchange rate for the bolivar was lower than that of the digital currency used in World of Warcraft. So, yeah, it's true. You can get 8,593 bolivars per U.S. dollar, whereas the World of Warcraft gold token are 8,385 per U.S. dollar. But what's funny, as Morse Potsite citing a 2015 CNN Money article, the value of the bolivar hovered around 279 bolivars per dollar. The currency has been in free fall ever since. So a dollar was equivalent to 279 bolivars in 2015. Now it's 8,500 bolivars per dollar. If somebody can do the math on that real quick, we can see how disturbing it is. I personally would love to go to Venezuela and find out what's really going on there. And, you know, with the exchange rate, what it is, it'd be a very cheap time to go visit Venezuela. Might not be the safest, but if anybody wants to help me get there, hit me up. Moving along. Opioid crisis. Lack of ID can bar drug addicts from treatment. The opioid epidemic killed more than 30,000 Americans in 2015, but less than 1 in 10 drug treatment facilities in the U.S. offer certified opioid treatment programs, according to statistics collected last year by the Federal Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. So all these administrations, it's amazing. The ID requirements at drug treatment facilities are intended to prevent people from enrolling in multiple programs and selling opioid medications such as methadone on the black market, according to the federal agency. People without IDs generally don't make it past the intake process at medical facilities, so tallies of their refusals are hard to come by, but advocates say it happens at least twice a day in Philadelphia alone. Every time we delay someone from getting into treatment, it puts them at risk for their life, said Jose Benitez, executive director of the nonprofit Prevention Point, Philadelphia. Okay, so opioid abuse. Where is all this opium coming from? It's coming from Afghanistan. Who controls Afghanistan? Uncle Sam. Who's the world's largest drug dealer? Uncle Sam. Also the world's largest arms dealer. Not a coincidence. Okay, back in 2000, the Taliban, who we put in power in Venezuela, decided they were tired of being our drug growers. So they burned most of the opium crop. Went from growing 90% of the world's opium to about 10% in a matter of years. That's why Uncle Sam invaded. One of the reasons, not to get their CIA buddy Osama bin Laden. Similar situation in other countries. The Independent in UK, independent.co.uk. Lizzie Dearden chiming in 4 days ago. Drug deaths hit record high in England and Wales, new statistics show. ONS says 3,744 people were killed by drug poisoning in 2016, amid warnings of danger of former legal highs in synthetic opioids such as fentanyl. Okay, so the opioid crisis ravaging the Western world. All these painkillers, who's giving them out? The pharmies, the pharmaceutical industry, the healthcare industry. It's very profitable. Of course, if you're being prescribed oxycodone, stuff like that, that shit will fuck you up. If you got friends who are getting addicted to painkillers or dabbling in heroin, try to help them out. Try to get them off. I had 2 friends die from opioid overdoses this last winter. Another friend spent the summer struggling to get off the shit. Okay? He went into the doctor suffering from mild depression. They gave him all these opioids to help him sleep. And now he's even more fucked up from the drugs than he was from his depression. Stay off the opioids, please. Moving along. Here's a good one. The son of Netanyahu, Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel. Since becoming an adult, the eldest son of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has repeatedly drawn media criticism for what has been portrayed as a life of privilege at taxpayers' expense. Yair Netanyahu, 26, has been described as someone who hobnobs with world leaders and enjoys a state-funded bodyguard while living at the prime minister's official residence. Daddy's boy. But his recent social media behavior, including a crude post, has now drawn public rebuke from the children of a former Israeli leader, along with threats of a libel suit. Okay, this is the most key point in this article here. Israel police Thursday disclosed that Netanyahu, that's the elder, that's the prime minister, is suspected of fraud, breach of trust, and bribes in a pair of cases, just as his son was being pilloried in the press. I think that's bigger news than his son posting some shit online that was off color, right? But Netanyahu suspected of fraud, breach of trust, and bribes, like most politicians. The younger Netanyahu hit the tabloids last weekend when a neighbor posted an account on how he refused to pick up after the Netanyahu family dog at a public park, and then, when confronted, gave the neighbor the finger. Okay? Benjamin Netanyahu's son won't even pick up his dog shit. I'm kind of guilty of that myself, too, sometimes. Yair Netanyahu then lashed out on Facebook at a website run by a liberal think tank that detailed what it said was his lavish lifestyle at taxpayers' expense. In the post, Yair Netanyahu alleged the site is funded by what he claimed are foreign interests, referring indirectly to the dovish New Israel Fund, which he renamed the Israel Destruction Fund. He signed the post with emojis of a middle finger and a pile of excrement. Avner Idenbar, the chairman of the Molad organization that runs the site, said they had served the younger Netanyahu with a notice of intent to sue if he does not retract his comments. Okay, so hidden in this kind of distracting story, it's briefly mentioned that the Prime Minister of Israel is suspected of fraud, breach of trust, and bribes. I got a fun little song lyric here from our dear friend Immortal Technique off his hit mixtape from 2011, The Martyr. And it's about nepotism. Nepotism, like Donald Trump getting all his family members, all his kids, all his son-in-laws and stuff associated with the White House. Nepotism, passing on the reins of power down the family chain. Bilderberg is like cancer. It grows in infection. Nepotism is the gold in the conductor's connection, and ignorance is the prison that the people are kept in. The military ain't there for the people's protection. They're just there to protect an investment. That's why people get arrested, electrocuted, molested. Connected states are infested with those tired of protested. Traumatized children grown in guerrilla garrisons, 9/11 generations pale in comparison, and you will learn a lesson repeated throughout history, that no matter what you think, occupation is not victory. Powerful words from Immortal Technique. If you haven't listened to The Martyr, check out that mixtape. Dropping bombs of knowledge all day long for us. The Immortal Technique. We got some classic distraction here about the femme fatale case where a girl told her boyfriend to kill himself. And so that's a distraction. Rockwall descendants oppose the sale of art. That's a distraction. Another distraction, Obama's not giving Vineyard a vacation. The Obama family's on vacation in Martha's Vineyard. Nobody fucking cares. It's not news. Here we see a classic page in the newspaper, okay? We got a full-page ad for real estate. We got another 80% of a page devoted to ads for various crap. And then we got a distracting story about the Obamas being on vacation. It's not news. You know, Congress is on vacation too. We should probably find out where every congressional member is enjoying their August recess and publish an entire edition of USA Today on it. Not news. Okay, moving on to the business section here in the Jackson Hole Daily. Robust July hiring boosts indexes. Stock markets at all-time record highs due to the QE Infinity pump scam. Okay, the Fed's printing money like it's going out of style. If you ever wonder why the price of things you need to survive, like bread and water and gas, keeps going up, it's because they keep printing money, gifting it to the government to fund deficit spending, and gifting it to the big banks to prop up the stock market. The system is rigged. It's a casino, and the house always wins at the casino when they control the chips. Banks and other stocks climbed Friday after the government reported more gains in hiring last month, the latest signal that the economy is continuing to hum along. The modest gains wrapped up another quiet week for the stock market. The Department of Labor said U.S. employers added 209,000 jobs last month. Investors sold government bonds and bet the interest rates are going to rise. Interest rates are going to rise. When that happens, the free money party is winding down. Big hangover. Investors sold government bonds and bet that interest rates are going to rise, which lets banks make more money on loans. Funny how that works. They create something out of nothing, loan it into existence, and charge you money for money. Bond prices dropped, sending yields higher. The yield on a 10-year Treasury note climbed to 2.26% from 2.22% as investors concluded it is more likely the Federal Reserve will raise interest rates again later in the year. Okay? So if the Fed keeps raising interest rates and stops printing money and gifting it to their criminal buddies in Washington and on Wall Street, the stock markets are going to collapse again eventually. Interestingly, on the business side, I think this is kind of important, but it didn't make the Jackson Hole Daily. Coming from our friends at Zero Hedge, Trump to launch trade war with China on Friday. That's yet 2 days ago. Beijing vows retaliation. Yesterday, the Wall Street Journal, sorry, I don't know, it keeps reloading these articles. It's driving me mad. Yesterday, the Wall Street Journal reported that the Trump administration is planning to begin a probe of what the U.S. sees as violations of intellectual property by China. Against the backdrop of Trump's frustrations with domestic policy, sliding approval ratings, and disagreement with China over North Korea, the chances of protectionist action are rising, as is the probability of a hot, retaliatory trade war. This morning, we learned that Trump is set to fire the first shot. Reuters reports, citing White House officials, that President Trump is expected to make a speech and sign a memorandum at the White House on Friday that will target China's intellectual property and trade practices, effectively firing the first shot in what could escalate into a major U.S.-China trade war. So we'll see what happens to that. Moving on, Pharma Bro Shkreli found guilty of fraud. Okay, Martin Shkreli, the famous Pharma Bro, known best for buying up a pharmaceutical company that produces a vital drug and jacking up the price by 5,000%. Basically telling people, hey, your money or your life. I'm Martin Shkreli. Well, he's been convicted, but he's not apologetic. The eccentric former pharmaceutical CEO, notorious for his price gouging scandal and his snide pharma bro persona on social media, was convicted Friday on federal charges that he deceived investors in a pair of failed hedge funds. Prosecutors had accused Shkreli of repeatedly misleading investors about what he was doing with their money. Mostly, he blew it on horrible stock picks, forcing him to cook up a scheme to recover millions in losses, prosecutors said. Shkreli, 34, told lies upon lies, including claiming he had $40 million in one of his funds when he only had about $300 in that account. Assistant U.S. Attorney Alexandra Smith said in closing arguments, "The trial has exposed Martin Shkreli for who he really is, a con man who stole millions." added another prosecutor, Jacqueline Casoulis. Okay? So this guy's a fall guy, Martin Shkreli. You know, one guy in the pharmaceutical industry jacked the price up 5,000%. Demonize him. But what about the entire Obamacare, Trump care scam, where health care prices for poor people in places like Wyoming might go up by 50% this year? Okay, it's systemic. It's nationwide. It's built into the system. This guy, Shkreli, is a fall guy, just like Bernie Madoff back in 2008, 2009. You pick one guy out, demonize him, it makes it look like the system is working for the people. It makes it look like the criminals are being prosecuted, when actually the criminals are in power, the biggest criminals. This guy, just like Bernie Madoff, what was his problem? Why is he getting busted? Why is he the fall guy? Because he lied to rich people. Because he stole rich people's money. It's perfectly fine to steal poor people's money all day long. But Bernie Madoff and Shkreli, fall guys. Moving along into the horoscopes. I haven't seen comments in quite a while. We might not be getting comments. I know this video is getting really long. If you want me to read your horoscope, let me know. I don't care how long these videos go because I got 4 hours of live time and I can go all day. Who wants their horoscope? Again, I don't really follow this stuff too closely, but it's in the paper, so it must be important. I'm a Taurus. I'm having a 5-star day this weekend, and here's what it says. You might have the urge to do some wandering, whether you're wanting to get to know a town better or simply are interested in strolling along the beach. That is most certainly true. You are likely to see a personal matter very differently after detaching from it. That is also true. Tonight, follow the music. Well, there's a live show out at Teton Village. My buddy Chan Man's playing, opening up for some other reggae band, so I might have to go check that out. All right, we got Virgo, Scorpio, and Capricorn getting into it. Thank you all for tuning in. I see the numbers are dwindling as the show gets a little longer, but I certainly appreciate all 35, 34 of you who are still tuned in. Going on to Virgo. Let's see, Virgo, you're having a 4-star day. You might need to make an adjustment to your plans. A friend or loved one demands to be around you. A sense of humor mixed with mischief permeates the afternoon. Give up being so uptight. For now, Matthew Stockford. Instead, opt to be more childlike. Tonight, do something exciting and fun. So, Matthew, have some fun tonight. Do something exciting. Karen J. Bowden, here's your Scorpio coming at ya. 4-star day. Reach out to several friends whom you would like to visit. You probably need to make an adjustment in order to accommodate a loved one. You might want to get away with this person for a couple hours. Others' imaginations fill in the blanks. Tonight, at a favorite haunt. And Amy Wilkes, Capricorn, here we go. 4-star day. You seem to steal the moment, Amy Wilkes. And as a result, you'll draw many people towards you. No matter what goes on, you look as if you are having a great time. And I hope you are, Amy. In your mind, you might be processing a difficult situation. Confide in a close loved one. Tonight, Amy, in the limelight. Trey Amoyette wanting the crabs, the cancer. JT Jones, thanks for timing in with good stuff. I always appreciate you signing in. I always appreciate you sharing. Same with you, Karen. Same with you, Doug. Zach Coons. Everybody else who's got our back here at Wake Up Wyoming. Here comes Cancer. 5-star day for you, Trey. Your imagination will take you down an interesting path. Others could be intrigued by what you are up to. Invite a friend to join you. You seem to have an audience and willing participants wherever you go. A loved one might not want to share you. Tonight, all smiles. So have fun out there, Trey. I encourage you all to have fun. Moving on to the People in Brief section. Okay, we got a little news on Chester Bennington and Chris Cornell, the rockers who impossibly hung themselves off of normal doorways. Okay? These guys were big. These guys were 6 feet tall. I couldn't hang myself off a doorway, and I don't think you could either, unless you were really, really, really fucked up on drugs. Okay? So, Chester Bennington, Chris Cornell, probably murdered. The late rock singers Chris Cornell and Chester Bennington were honored by Cornell's 12-year-old daughter and the band One Republic during a moving and heartfelt live performance Friday. Cornell and Bennington were close friends, and Bennington was the godfather of Chris Cornell's 11-year-old son, Chris. Cornell hanged himself in May. Bennington, who was 41, hanged himself on what would have been Cornell's 53rd birthday last month. Both deaths were ruled suicides. Okay? If you read the history of rock music, you'd be shocked how many performers have allegedly committed suicide. Now, for me, I don't really understand why, if you're a famous millionaire artist who made it big and has a family and kids and is still performing all over the world, making a ton of money to do what you love, why would you kill yourself? We got a news story here today from our dear friends at Your Newswire, run by, who's that guy? I forget. But moving on. Chester Bennington's family claims media guilty of murder cover-up. Published on July 24th, 2017 by Baxter Dimitri. Close friends and family of Chester Bennington claimed the Linkin Park frontman did not commit suicide, but was murdered in a cover-up that implicates music industry executives and mainstream media. The Twitter account of Chester Bennington's wife, Talinda Ann Bentley, published a series of extraordinary messages in the hours immediately following Bennington's death. In one tweet, the account claimed that the singer did not commit suicide. Talinda Bennington writing at 9:42 a.m. on July 21st, 2017, "He didn't kill himself. He was already dead before he hung himself. I have proof." Media outlets have all claimed the Twitter account must have been hacked, though none have provided any evidence to back up their speculation. Many fans are disturbed by the idea that Bentley's account was hacked at the exact same time as her husband's death, pointing out the unlikely and claiming it lends credibility to the theory of a widespread conspiracy to cover up. Others believe she sent the tweets in a state of panic before a handler stopped her from sending any further messages to the public. Okay? So anyway, there's all this story here. It's pretty good. Chris Keene, some musician chiming in here. Chris Cornell's wife has also refused to accept the coroner's verdict that his husband committed suicide, as investigators continue finding suspicious circumstances in the details of his death in Detroit last month. Again, Chris Cornell and Chester Bennington, very close friends. This is a great article here at Your Newswire. Check it out if you want more info. Chester Bennington's family and friends claim media guilty of murder cover-up. Can't see it. Too bright. Oh, let's move on. So sad to see that. These guys apparently, allegedly, were trying to expose a pedophile ring within Hollywood and the music industry. Doesn't surprise me one bit. West Bank murals mock Trump. My friends, if you like art, make some art. Make some political art. Make some social commentary art. Make some art that is going to help the world become more aware and evolve. It works. Bethlehem, West Bank, AP. 2 murals showing an oversized President Trump have appeared on Israel's West Bank separation barrier, just yards from where the elusive artist Banksy decorated a hotel earlier this year. The new drawings popped up on the edge of Bethlehem, the Palestinian city where the barrier largely consists of a wall of towering slabs of concrete. In one scene, Trump is shown hugging and kissing a real Israeli army watchtower built into the wall, with his left arm reaching around the tower. Little pink hearts flutter from Trump's mouth. In another drawing, Trump is depicted as wearing a Jewish skull cap and placing his hand on the wall, a scene taken from the U.S. president's May visit to Jerusalem's Western Wall, the holiest site where Jews can pray. A cartoon thought bubble next to him says, "I'm going to build you a brother," a possible reference to Trump's plans to build a border wall between the U.S. and Mexico. The murals are both signed Lush Sucks, a signature that, according to a 2016 article published by Australian newspaper The Age, has been used in the past by a Melbourne street artist. The artist was among those participated in a Banksy show in Britain in 2015. The Twitter account in the name Lush Sucks posted the mural of Trump with his hand on the wall Monday. The second mural was seen by an Associated Press cameraman for the first time Friday. The new graffiti mural is just yards away from the Waldorf Hotel, a Palestinian-run guest house that opened earlier this year and sarcastically promotes itself as having the worst view in the world. Okay, that's Banksy's hotel. Hopefully one day I'll get to stay there. The 9-room hotel was decorated with Banksy's trademark political murals, including one in Banksy's room that shows a masked Palestinian and a helmeted Israeli soldier participating in a pillow fight. Israel began building the separation barrier a decade ago at the height of an armed Palestinian uprising, saying that the divider was needed to keep suicide bombers and gunmen from entering Israel. Palestinians say the barrier, which slices off about 10% of the West Bank, amounts to a land grab. Israel captured the West Bank, Gaza, and East Jerusalem in 1967. Several U.S.-led Israeli-Palestinian attempts to negotiate the terms of a Palestinian state on the lands have failed. Trump said early in his term that he would also try to broker a deal, but has not yet offered a way forward. Go figure, Donnie Trump not really trying to help Palestine out. My heart goes out to the people of Palestine. Okay, they've been persecuted, occupied, had their land stolen since 1946. I got a great little map here on Wikimedia Commons. The Palestinian loss of land, 1946 to 2010. See if that shows up. There we go. Okay, so that to the left there on your screen, that's Palestine in 1946. To the right there, that's Palestine in 2010. It's gotten even smaller since, okay? It was a land grab. Palestine was stolen. The Jews given that place, given the Holy Land. I'm not sure why it's so holy, but given the Holy Land after World War II. Moving on, we got a lot of distractions here. Story about a miracle dog, blah, blah, blah. The mainstream media loves animals, maybe more than people. Alaska town loses cop force but keeps its cool. All 4 police officers in a remote Alaskan town resigned simultaneously or within a couple days of each other, and it turns out everything was fine. The people managed not to kill themselves or each other for the time when they didn't have cops. It's kind of fun here in Alpine. We don't have a police force. They used to have 1 cop car and a couple cops in this beautiful little town of 1,000 souls. Then they realized it wasn't worth wasting money on. We haven't had cops in Alpine for years. Everybody's doing just fine. Moving along. Thanks again for tuning in. We still got 33 viewers. I know this is a long one, but I took a few days off. I was out climbing some mountains, climbing some big walls out in the Wind River Range with my dear friend Sprout. And I got back Saturday, spent from that trip. Needed to take some time to catch up with the news after being out in the real world for a little while. Lovely to get out there in nature. Encourage you all to stay active as well. Here's a cool trend going nationally. Farms draw diners to eat near food sources. What was once a smattering of farms offering expensive dinners within view of the fields where the food was raised has sprouted into popular summer and fall events that run the gamut from multi-course meals to weekly burger nights at farms across the country. These farm feasts are popping up from California to Vermont and are part of a growing agritourism movement. Diners enjoy locally raised foods. Farmers supplement their income. By using these dinners to draw people down to the farm, it serves to educate them, enlighten them about sustainable agriculture practices, and hopefully at the end of it, they go back to wherever, Chicago, suburbs, and they start shopping more at farmers markets and things like that, said Bob Brennison, spokesperson for the nonprofit Family Farm, which works with farmers and food entrepreneurs to help grow their businesses. Okay, we got to relocalize agriculture in this country. Big ag is killing us, okay? There's poison, if you're not eating organic, if you can't afford to eat organic, why is that? If you go to the store and the only things they sell are Diet Mountain Dew and Doritos and Fritos, and maybe you can get an old beat-to-ship banana there, why is that? Why is the food that is so bad for us so cheap, while the food that is good for us so expensive? And why, in God's name, do they spray the wheat crop with Monsanto's toxic, banned all over the world, glyphosate pesticides immediately before they harvest it to boost yields? Okay, it's disturbing. I got an article here about big ag and droughts. It's some climate change propaganda as well. from our not quite friends there at Grist. Okay, Grist making some money. They're kind of new neoliberal left environmental reporters, but they take the climate change agenda hook, line, and sinker. Flashed out could devastate half the High Plains wheat harvest, says propagandist Eric Holthaus on August 1st, 2017. It's peak hurricane season, but the nation's worst weather disaster right now is raging on the High Plains. An intense drought has quickly gripped much of the Dakotas and parts of Montana this summer, catching farmers and ranchers off guard. The multi-agency U.S. Drought Monitor recently upgraded the drought to exceptional, its highest severity level, matching the intensity of the California drought at its peak. Okay, of course, this drought in eastern Montana and North Dakota has only been going on for a couple months. The California drought lasted about 5 years. Prior to that, the Texas drought lasted for about 5 years too. The Associated Press says the dry conditions are laying waste to crops in searing pasture and hayland in America's new wheat belt, with some longtime ranchers and farmers calling it the worst in their lifetimes. Unfortunately, this kind of came out of nowhere drought could become a lot less rare in the future. Rainfall across the affected region has been less than half of normal since late April, when this year's growing season began. In parts of Montana's Missouri River Basin, which is the drought's epicenter, rainfall has been less than a quarter of normal, which equals the driest growing season in recorded history for some communities. Okay, it goes on and on. Wheat production, we should be growing wheat on a smaller scale. We shouldn't be spraying it with glyphosate. But it's important to note, then they go on to this. Droughts like these are closely linked to climate change. As temperatures rise, abnormally dry conditions across the western United States are already becoming more common and more intense. And as evaporation rates speed up, rainfall becomes more erratic, and spring snowmelt dries up earlier each year. Future summers in North Dakota are expected, they don't say forecast, they say expected, to be even hotter and drier, on par with the present-day weather of South Texas. Okay, it's climate change propaganda. The technology has existed for a long time to make it rain. The technology has existed for a long time to steer storms. The technology has existed for a long time to cause droughts. Okay, this is reality. I could go on and on about this topic all day long. I'm very passionate about it because I enjoy eating food, I enjoy drinking water, and I enjoy the outdoors. I'm a sailor, I'm a skier. I pay close attention to the weather and the history of weather modification. Very fascinating. This drought in North Dakota could be ended. It could also be caused. As we saw in California and Texas, these droughts serve, you have these short-term droughts that last 2 to 5 years. What happens? The small farmers, the small players, the independent family farms go out of business, right? Because they can't weather this storm unless they bought some really expensive crop insurance. And why would they do that if they can't afford it? So the little family farms go out of business. Big Ag swoops in, buys up their land at a deep discount, and then poof, miraculously the drought ends. Matthew A. Weeks, have you ever read up on HARP? Absolutely, bro. It's all part of the, there's a whole array, like HARP is an array of antennas. There's a whole array of weather modification technologies that have been deployed that are changing the climate. It's stranger than science fiction, but that's reality in the world today. Moving on, we're getting into the classifieds. Jackson Hole Daily's got no shortage of TV listings for your pleasure this weekend. Just watch a bunch of boob tube. Everything's going to be fine, is what the paper says. As usual, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7.5 to 8 pages of job listings, classified ads here in Jackson Hole. Of course, if you want a place to live, you're forking out some big money. Okay? Cheapest rent here I see in Jackson Hole, 2-bedroom plus loft, $1,800 a month. That's pretty reasonable for Jackson. Aspen condo, 2-bed, 2-bath, $3,500 a month, 6-month lease. First last deposit, so you're going to have to plunk down $10,500, get your foot in the door for those 6 months. And we got more ads. Oh, I forgot to read you all the article about Sasquatch kills the hunter. Well, I lost it. Long story short, my main headline there that I neglected to read is a funny story about a guy from Portland who thought he was a Sasquatch and went after a hunter. He was off his meds. Trying to keep it fun, lighthearted here today. Speaking of fun and lighthearted, we got a couple, usually when I read the comic strips, they're not that funny. They're not that political. They're not that poignant. They don't get a chuckle or a giggle or a smile out of me. And it's sad. I used to love reading the comics as a kid. But there's actually a couple good ones here. In Shoe, we got a woman and a man sitting at a bar. They're both ducks, whatever. And this woman, they're sitting at the bar. She says, "I have half a mind to become a cable channel news anchor." And the old drunk duck says, "That's more than you'll need." So that's pretty funny, pretty poignant. And on Overboard, they got this random speech bubble coming up out of thin air. And it says, "Raymond, have you heard about colony collapse disorder?" The dog, Raymond, walks into Overboard Incorporated cartoonist's office and says, "Whose line of dialogue was that back there?" And the cartoonist for Overboard says, "Well, Raymond, it was supposed to be a bee." So it's cool. Overboard is covering colony collapse disorder. Shoe poking fun at the cable news. Cartoonists, we need you. We need more of your poignant social commentary. We need more of your creativity and your art. So please keep them coming like that. Here's a great story. Cannabis company stirs pot with plan to take over town. Okay, Nipton, California. Now that one of the nation's largest cannabis companies has bought the entire California desert town of Nipton, a question remains. Will the new owners rename the place Potsylvania? The name Weed already belongs to an old mill town in Northern California. American Green Incorporated announced it is buying all 80 acres of Nipton, including its Old West-style hotel, a handful of houses, an RV park, and a coffee shop. It will transform the old Gold Rush town into an energy-independent, cannabis-friendly hospitality destination. Sounds like a cool spot. The town's owner, Roxanne Lang, said the sale is in escrow, but confirmed that American Green is the buyer. She declined to reveal the price before the sale closes, but said she and her late husband, Gerald Freeman, listed the property at $5 million for the town of Nipton. Asked what her husband would think of the buyer's plans to turn Nipton into a pot paradise, she laughed heartily. "I think he would find a lot of humor in that," she said, adding that as a libertarian, Freeman had no problem with people using marijuana, and as a proponent of green power, he'd be all in favor of energy independence. Over the years, he'd installed a solar farm himself that provides much of the town's electricity. American Green plans to extend that solar farm and also bottle and sell cannabis-infused water from Nipton's plentiful aquifer. Joint moves that would make the town green in more ways than one. The company is also reaching out to edibles manufacturers and other pot industry businesses, hoping they'll be interested in relocating to Nipton and bringing jobs with them. The town's residents number fewer than 24, and one of its major sources of revenue is the California lottery tickets the general store sells to people who cross the state line from Nevada because they can't buy them there. Okay, Nipton was a ghost town in the 1950s. Even worse, it was 60 miles south of Las Vegas and 10 miles off the major highway that connects that city to Los Angeles. So next time you're passing through the highway between Vegas and LA, take a trip out to Nipton. See what it's like. Sounds pretty cool. Again, we had that article earlier from True Disclosure about marijuana, cannabis cures cancer. The government's known about it since 1974. And patent 6,630,507, showcasing that the government owns the rights to use marijuana as a neuroprotectant and antioxidant. Strange days. But the pot world. Okay, sports. We got sports. Distractions. It's kind of cool, though, I have to say. Thank you, Jackson Hole Daily. Your sports coverage is much smaller than usual today. Nobody really cares about Tom Brady, whoever this Tannehill guy is, Marshawn Mania, and Usain Bolt. He won a 100-meter dash. Congratulations, fastest man in the world. You're very fast. Again, sports, bread and circuses, the biggest divisive distraction that we got right now. And most dishearteningly, it teaches children that they should aspire to be professional athletes instead of professional, badass, enlightened, aware human beings. Okay? You can make millions of dollars for being really good at kicking a football or hitting something with a tennis racket or a golf club. But if you're good at sharing the real news, you're good at reading between the lines, you ain't making that much money at it, like myself. And that gets us through today's Jackson Hole Daily Weekend Edition. I'm going to go ahead and shred this one. Video quite a bit longer than usual today. Thank you all for tuning in. I hope that the new mic is working out well. We still got 20 viewers as we go into the 120th minute, or excuse me, the 80th minute. Wow. This is the longest video I've ever put out. Again, I apologize for being out of service for about 4 days, but I was off having some fun, getting out in the real world, enjoying nature, doing some thinking, getting away from my tracking device and a testicle irradiation device and all that, and just enjoying a friend's company and the adventure of climbing mountains with ropes and cams and all that fun stuff out in the wilderness. It's still out there. The world is still beautiful. And all we got to do to save it is expose the lies. So thank you all for tuning in. Thanks for your likes. Thanks for your shares. Thanks for your comments and your support. Really appreciate you all. It's your boy Mog here at beautiful Alpine, Wyoming with Wake Up Wyoming. Stay active, stay aware, stay healthy. Keep sharing. We got this. Don't be afraid. One love. Peace.